Yo, 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 it's ODB from OLP. This is episode 379. I know I was going to hit you guys last week and it just did not work out. I want to give a huge shout out to Scrapin' the Coast, June 20th through the 22nd in Biloxi, Mississippi. Our title sponsor, one of the biggest and baddest shows you'll visit in the country. Of course, you got the air conditioning inside the Coliseum. It's a world-class event. Also, Mini Truck Hall of Fame inducted event. Check out Scrapin' the Coast with an IN, SCRAPIN, the Coast, down for more information. So, on this episode, I have continued to promise. Some love it, some may not, but it's going to be shorter content. When I cover scene updates and things like that, I'm probably going to do that on an off episode that'll be more concise, more condensed to those updates. But on this episode, I want to welcome my friend Eric Edwards from Back to the Future IG. Okay. So if you go on Instagram and follow, just type in Back to the Future and then the letter IG, kind of short for Instagram. That is his official handle. And we're going to talk a ton about the all-time classic, not even a cult classic that Mike would try to maybe spin it to a cult classic, but it's definitely not a cult classic. It's arguably, not even arguably, it's an all-time classic. Many often regard Back to the Future as one of the greatest films ever made. And of course, a lot of people also chalk it up to a, quote, perfect film, which is fantastic. Love some BTTF for short, of course. But Eric and I are going to talk a lot about his account, how he became a fan of the film. Man, if you're from the 80s or 90s or you grew up in that era or you just love it, you got to follow the account because Eric does so many cool collab posts. They are constantly out in, quote, time machine DeLoreans visiting the famous movie spots in Southern California. So please check him out. Again, I'm going to keep this intro as possibly shorter as it's ever been. And again, I want to say thanks to Scrapin' the Coast, our title sponsor of OLP. If you have an opportunity and you're listening to this via a podcast app, thank you. Don't stop doing that, but certainly consider jumping over to our YouTube channel. You get a much richer experience. You also get a chance to see kind of what's going down in the studio here. I have hinted that there's some big changes coming. I will be sharing that in the near future on some of the impacts to ODBZ. But I'm still going to try to stay in the heezy for sheezy. We shall see. But without further ado, let's welcome Eric to the episode. Have a safe week/weekend, depending on when you're listening to this. And as always, stay on the rise, my fam. ODB, keep on listening. We got ya. Peace. Hey, I'm so excited to have my friend Eric Edwards from Back to the Future IG on. Eric, how are you, my friend?
What's up, man? It's good to finally meet.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's so cool is I've told my listeners over the course of time, you know, whether you're watching YouTube content or if you're into a certain thing like we are, Back to the Future, we all kind of seem to come together, whether, you know, on YouTube, I watch a lot of Adam the Woo, my friend Sean,
Yeah.
you know, Scott on Tape and things like that. And what you're doing and what we're going to dive into has been really cool.
The Woo is kind of an inspiration to all of us.
Yeah.
He's the hero of it.
Yes, and that's what Sean from All About Los Angeles will often say, kind of the godfather in a certain term of this pop culture stuff.
All the locations. I mean, that guy lived in his van for a couple of years just driving through. Did you ever see the video he did of National Lampoons?
Yeah, dude.
That he stopped in every location?
Yeah, unbelievable.
Like, who does that?
Yeah, the guy is...
That's dedication.
He's passionate. I want to start by asking you, like, just a little bit of background about yourself. Like, where did you grow up, like, geographically, so some of the listeners know?
Yeah, born and raised in LA, have moved 25 plus times, which is pretty crazy, but all Southern California, never left the state. So, I mean, LA is the stomping ground of Back to the Future and Hollywood and all the movies.
Yeah, and I want to jump into BTTF now, but I do want to say, and I said this on the last episode, listen, we know what's going on out there is horrific. I know California is a big state, when a hurricane hits Florida, all my friends text me, "Are you okay?" Not everybody kind of knows geographically, but for the listeners out there, you're safe where you're at, right? But we know it's been catastrophic.
Fires, it was like a straight war zone out here, honestly. The Palisades is probably 15 miles away.
That's it.
So it's close, but I'm not right there.
Yeah, so
I'm
it's
in
scary.
Calabasas, which is just inland of Malibu and the Palisades. And it did get in Calabasas, but it was out in just a couple hours. So, but I did pack my bags. I had to pack the Michael J. Fox signature, so I
Yeah,
couldn't lose that one.
it's insanity, and we're praying for everybody out there, and the firefighter, the men and women, all the first responders. Thank you for what you guys do. If you happen to hear this, we know that you're on the front line, so we want to give a huge shout out to them.
Did some come from Florida? Maybe.
I believe so. It's kind of like the linemen, right? When there's the hurricanes here, they'll come from all over.
Yeah.
And it's big stuff. Those folks are away from their families and whatnot. So we got to tip our cap.
If you go to any hotel right now, I just see a bunch of fire trucks just parked there. Like they're all staying there. They're all come from different places. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, and it wasn't just the elite. There's a lot of just normal blue collar folks that I understand that were
for
impacted. And
sure.
you start to say 6, 7, 8,000 plus structures. It's just mind blowing. And I think some people go, "Oh, it's a fire," but if you just thought for a second, if you just came home to your home and all of your photos, right? Any heirlooms, if you will. I know that's kind of an old school word, but any of that stuff was just literally wiped off the face of the map.
No, it's
You know,
devastating.
yeah, it's gonna just hit you hard in the gut.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. So
Now,
you're out in Tampa?
what's that? Yeah, so I'm in Tampa. I'm midway. So I like to tell people it's funny because right in Tampa is the University of South Florida, USF Bulls, right? But I've always been like, well, South Florida is Miami, right? How are we USF? But we're basically, Eric, right in the middle of the state.
Got it.
And
Okay.
since I believe we'll dabble in this a little bit later, your career, but with what this Tampa Bay area and the county that I live in, it's not the top county, but it's one of the top 5 or 10 in the country where companies are coming, people are moving. So I know California and Florida, we share a lot of the same climate,
Yeah.
destinations, things like that. And it's a good thing, as because we want people to live, in these beautiful areas because it helps the economy as well.
Bro, I could not do the cold. Like
Yeah.
California's so expensive. I will pay all day just for the weather. Like
Yeah.
it's mid-January right now. Sunny skies. It's like probably 70 degrees.
Yeah, it's insanity. It dipped today. We were like in the high of the 50s, which is odd.
Oh,
But,
that's cold.
yeah, we'll take it a little bit. We'll put our Back to the Future jackets on and things. And
There you
we're
go.
going to say, hey, the spring is right there. So we're going to hold tight.
You have an orange vest?
I do not yet. That's one of my bucket list items.
Yeah. I just got the 2015 one.
Nice.
Yeah. Shout out to Belair's. They sent me that.
Yeah, Belair. They've been doing some real high-end collab type stuff. And what I want to do is I want to transition into BTTF. I want to let folks know that are listening or watching this on YouTube, go on Instagram right now, right? You can multitask
Gotta
over
do
on
it.
your iPhone. And it's Back to the Future IG, like short for Instagram. And arguably, we're going to break this down. The biggest, well, I'm going to say this, the baddest, the best, however you want to say it, Back to the Future page out there. It's been about a year in the making, but I got to ask you this. How did you become a fan of any of these films, Eric?
Probably the same way you did. I first saw the movie when I was 7, and I don't think I've ever done this before, but I watched the movie and I immediately watched it again.
Excellent.
And I had the 3-box set. It was my stepmom just came home one day and she just kind of threw me the 3-box set and was just like, "Hey, I think you'd like this movie." And I was just like, "Okay, whatever." And then I was just like, I was mind blown at 7 years old. And I remember like I had the other 2 and 3, and I was like, that first one was so good. I want to watch that again before I can watch the other 2. So I just watched it back to back.
Yeah, very cool. I was in 85, I was 7, and I wasn't at the age, although I swear my parents took me to see E.T. at some point,
Yeah,
but I wasn't at the age where like I was like, hey, I want to go to the movies and things like that. But I
totally.
remember in my parents' yard exactly where I was as a child. My mom opened the front door. My dad and I were walking back from the road, taking out the garbage. And my mom said, "Hey, hurry up. Back to the Future is getting ready to come on." And of course, back then we have the VHS tape somewhere, but we of course put a VHS tape in. It was on WFLA, and we hit record. And literally that's from then on. I mean, I fell in love with the film.
That was in '85. That was like right when it got
Well,
released.
yeah, it was when you know what?
It's kind of.
It was probably a little after, because to your point, the VHS, it would take a while for it because they would kind of do the home rental and then the
I
buy.
think like '86.
Yeah, it might have been 86, or it could have been even like, I mean, 86, 87, because when they
Okay.
would broadcast the stuff, it would take forever back then.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah, which is kind
Okay.
of crazy.
Yeah, so you're just like me. You just saw it when you were a little kid, and you're just like, whoa.
Yeah. And we're going to get into some really cool things. I want to ask you this, though. When you think about a year ago, you made a post recently and you said you were blown away, right? All the folks you have met. Did you ever think, let's call it January 2024, you started Back to the Future IG on Instagram, and you've done so much, you met so many people. How's that journey been?
Well, if you asked me the morning of I started that account, do I have any plans on starting it? I would say no. I mean,
Wow.
maybe I'd say like, I guess I'm open to it, but yeah. And same even with that name. If you ask me about that name, be like, oh, that's a cool name. But like, I just did it
Yeah,
just
on
like,
a whim.
maybe I
On a
should just
whim.
start it.
Yeah. Yeah, on a whim. That's pretty cool, man.
Yeah. So, well, the backstory is I started that account February 20th, and let's say we go back 2 weeks to February 10th. I'm at Starbucks just minding my own business, and a DeLorean pulls up. I'm just like, are you kidding me? So I go talk to the guy. We hit it off for like an hour, and I just said, hey, are you on Instagram? He said, yeah, sure. Here's my Instagram name. You actually know him. His name is Nathan Knight.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's probably how you found me originally,
probably.
because he drove a Lincoln.
Yes.
Yeah. He has a Lincoln. He has like a 1975 Bronco, and then he also has a 67 Mustang Fastback. The red one. I
Yeah,
posted it.
yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, he pulled up in a DeLorean and, exchanged Instagrams. A couple days later, I just post on my story of a Rolls Royce. Just a quick little video, and he comments on that. He's just like, that was the sickest thing I've ever seen. And I was just like, oh yeah, okay. And he's just like, can you do that in my DeLorean? I was like, yeah, of course. So a couple days later, we met up, made some videos for him. I sent it to him. And then he was like, hey, I should probably just give you my password to my account and you can just like run it. And I was like, yeah. And then like a couple hours later, I was like, why don't I just start my own? And
There
then I
you
just
go.
was just like, oh, I'm just going to start it. And I just typed in Back to the Future, and then I was like, that's obviously taken. I was just like, IG. Boom. That's how it started.
Yeah, and you mentioned about this post a couple weeks ago, kind of saying, hey, about a year ago, you had a post that kind of really built a lot of steam. Often the word viral is thrown around. Some of the edits that you do, talk to us about how it's blown your mind that some of these have really blown up.
Yeah. So February 25th, I posted a couple videos that I took of his car, and they did all right. Brand new account, probably got like 2,000 to 5,000 views, which is great.
Okay.
And then probably about 5 days later, I'm out in Burbank. And I've never even been to this spot, but I knew I was just like, hey, that Burger King is like near here. I was like, I'm going to go there. So I go there, and then I do like a side by side of, 1985 and today. And I just clipped them together, and I just kind of copied on my phone of him leaving the garage and going to the street. And that got 2 million views,
Yeah, you're like,
like
boom,
right off the bat. It was like within a week. And so I had like 50 to 100 followers at that time, had the account for like a week. And then it just shot me to 1,000 and 2 million views. And I was just like, this is crazy.
Yeah, something I want to dive into. I was thinking about this last night, right? I'm not the biggest Star Wars fan. I never did Star Wars. I like, personally, I remember as a kid watching them and stuff. But I often say this, Eric, that we're so lucky as fans of this franchise that, a lot of Star Wars, I mean, you can go to some of the movie sites, right? Some and
It's
a
in
lot of
Europe.
movies, yeah, but when you really look at this film, right? The fact that we're at now the 5th anniversary, right, coming up. It's insane to me because we can go to these locations, right? And you, on your account, if folks go out Back to the Future IG and follow Eric, you're proving that you can get out there and you can kind of live this Hill Valley life.
Yeah. You know, something funny, even at 7 years old, when I first saw that movie, and you know, it starts off at his house, like you see the tow truck back in the driveway. I grew up in the San Fernando Valley where that house was. And I like knew, I was just like, that is in the valley. That is close because that looks like my house. And I was like, I'm going to go there one day. I didn't go there it took me forever to get there, but I finally made it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You've been there, right?
Yes, I did get a chance to go there. It was like 2015, maybe.
Okay.
Well, ironically, it was 2014, 2015 when I was in the telecommunication world, and we went to Google. We got to visit there, and the campus was insane. And
Yeah.
I had a coworker that he was like, "What are you doing tonight?" I said, "Look, man, I'm driving. I mean, granted, traffic's bad there, so I forget. I mean, it was probably like an hour drive, and we got there
Yeah.
in the evening. He was all wigged out. There's cars all down, but I did take a quick photo there in between or in front of it, and I plan to go back. But it's so neat that if you think about it from a fandom standpoint, that you guys that live in Southern California, like the Shawns of All About Los Angeles, and you, Eric, you
Yeah.
guys can go and hit, these, the Gambler, is it the Gambler
Gamble
House
House.
and things like that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The Gambler House. You could do all of that and you can kind of live that life.
It's crazy. It's funny. The first time I went there, I went there by myself, and this was years ago, way before the account. And I was kind of like intimidated, like, and it's also someone's house. So
Right.
want to be respectful, but I didn't get out the car and just kind of like pulled up and just like took a couple photos and was like, that's crazy. And
Yeah.
then kind of sped a little bit, like past it, just,
Yeah.
with the
Yeah.
car. But yeah, I was kind of like intimidated. Area's kind of a little rough too, but yeah. And then I've been back multiple times. The owners, I even have the owner's phone number.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we
Because
we
it's
sent them
technically
gift
like,
baskets.
it's like a museum well, it's not, it's like a historic landmark now, right?
The Gamble houses, but
The,
not the McFly house.
right. Not the McFly house. Okay. Right. Gotcha.
Yeah. The Gamble house is owned by Procter and Gamble, and it's like a museum.
Got it. Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
The McFly house, they have been there since the 70s.
Wait,
And
it's still the same family?
same family. Also next door is the same person too, and maybe a couple more on that street. But yeah,
Yeah,
same owners.
that's so cool. Yeah, and
I know.
they seem pretty cool about it. Now, I want to ask you this briefly because when people go out and follow you, Eric, at Back to the Future, all spelled out IG, you have
Yeah.
to follow this account. If you love 80s like I do and early 90s, there's so many cool mashups. I have learned from my friend 3J's, one of my best friends. He's taught me some editing stuff, and I love the world we live in because you can these digital tools, if you learn them, you could do some amazing stuff. Now, I'm far from the skill set that you have, the way I envision. Talk to us a little bit. Like, are you using like Adobe type stuff? Because some of your edits are super cool, man.
All right. So I told you I started the account February 25th of 24,
Yeah.
right? Go back 2 months, just a bunch of things kind of weirdly lined up to it. So we'll go back 2 months prior to that. So December of
23.
23. Yeah. Probably we'll say December 15th to December 30th. The whole world checks out because it's the holidays, end of the year. I took this little gig of managing someone else's social media,
Wow.
but I had no experience. And I like to do everything right, and I don't like to cut corners. So I spent 8 hours a day on YouTube, just studying algorithms, editing, everything for 2 weeks straight,
Wow.
and just kind of taught myself like that. And then 2 months later, I started that account, but I had no thoughts I was even going to do that. It just kind of helped me right there.
That's so inspiring because I often try to tell people that, like, if we could easily quote George McFly here and say, if you put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything, right, Eric?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
what's so cool is years ago, maybe 5 years ago, a rapper he said something along the lines of like, you have a computer in your pocket, right? If you can't make $1,000 a year, with the phone that's in your, whether you're throwing something on Marketplace or, managing a social media account that brings in a couple bucks a month and things like that. He's like, if you're not making $1,000 a year or way more off your phone,
Yeah,
and some people may not want to make the extra money, but I tell people all the time, you can't crap on other people that are trying, because at the end of
totally.
the day, yeah, like, and people freak out. They're like, I can't believe you want a new iPhone every 2 or 3 years. I'm like, okay, the amount of money, I know some people, like, no offense, they go to Starbucks every day. If you add that up in a year, all I'm saying is you could take an iPhone that might cost you $1,500, and it's amazing. And an Android as well, right? A Pixel phone, whatever. But
Yeah,
it's amazing what you can do with a phone.
you can make millions of dollars on a phone. I
Yeah.
mean, you got kids doing it, just making videos,
Yeah.
doing prank videos, reviewing toys. They're way ahead of us.
I think if there was a Back to the Future 4, Dr. Emmett Brown, we would have learned that he invented the smartphone. You know what I mean? That was after the flux capacitor.
Yeah, exactly. They had something going on. They had the glasses in the second one.
Yes, right,
Remember, it's like, more
exactly.
food, please.
Yes.
Yeah,
I love it. Now, I want to talk about the films now, but I want to mention this, okay? You may or may not know this. Some of the sleuth fans may, but I brought this up in the past. Today is January 1st, okay? And that day ties into Back to the Future, okay? So for those that don't know, I've never seen evidence that 100% this is a direct Easter egg, but it's 1.21 gigawatts, right?
that's right.
The first DeLorean rolled off the assembly line January 1st of 1982. What a great year, right? So
Yeah,
there's some parallels there. Maybe it's an alternate universe, but to me, it's so neat that you and I both know the amount of time and effort and some of the things that I'm sure there's sometimes you're scratching your head like me going, wow, like, wow, I didn't even realize that, and I got to give credit to the gentleman, his name probably, Back to the Future HQ.
yeah. Jason.
He's
His
done a,
name's Jason.
is his name Jason? He has done a
Yeah,
really, really good job, and I don't give him enough credit. He's done things like at the end of Back to the Future 3. A lot of folks don't know that, when Flea is in the truck, you've got the other guys, and there's like one guy from each of the different eras of Biff's crew.
yeah,
Like little things like that are just like, wow, the Bobs really killed it.
yeah. I'm trying to meet up with one of them.
Yeah, it's cool.
So there was Flea driving, and then next to him, his name is Chris, and
Okay.
he's wearing sunglasses,
Yes.
and he was in Buford's gang in part 3. And he was the guy who's like, check out those pearly whites and
Yes.
those moccasin boots. Yeah. He actually lives in my area,
So
but he disappeared from acting.
got it. Yeah, some
Yeah.
people do.
Yeah, and I have a buddy who's friends with him, and I'm just like, hey, like, introduce me to him.
Yeah, let's
You know,
do some mashups and stuff. Now
I
I
want to
gotta
take him to Oxnard, where Hilldale was, where they race.
yes, and Sean has been there. I think did you guys make a trip there recently?
I've been there 3 times, probably.
Yeah,
I've actually never met Sean.
okay, you hadn't met Sean. Okay. So for
Yeah,
those that don't know, if you look up Oxnard, just how it sounds, California on Google Maps, that is where there's a town that's you could almost you could probably hear the freeway, right? Because you guys we call them expressways, you guys call them freeways. But
freeways. Yeah.
out there is where the Hill Valley, the old 1885 town, which, as you know, there was the fire in the late 80s, early 90s.
No, that's the 1885. That's in
Oh, sorry.
Northern California.
Yeah, I got that mixed up. Oxnard is
Hilldale.
where the DeLorean gets demolished, right?
Yeah, so that's the train tracks.
Train track.
It's in Oxnard, but so is Hilldale.
Okay, got it. And then the other place, and I got that mixed up because they filmed 2 and 3 at the same time. And then
Yeah.
the fire was a few years later when the old West Town burned down.
Got struck by lightning.
Yeah, I know. Like, you can't make this stuff up, Eric.
Yeah, I know. It's just like, what?
Now, I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you this question, right? If you have to pick Back to the Future 1, 2, or 3, okay?
It's 1 all day.
Yeah, and I think a lot of us say that because without 1, you don't have 2 or 3.
Correct.
Now, I love Back to the Future 2. When in November of 89, my dad took my sister and I. We rode in his 59 Apache. We went and saw it. We were blown away. And what we were so excited, and one of my buddies recently said, oh, well, I didn't get to go to movies a lot as a kid. I was like, well, I didn't either, but we begged my dad and he took us. But at the end of that movie, my sister and I were so excited because that's November 89. They go, hey, May 1990, the adventure continues. And it was so cool to be able to walk away and go, wow, we can't wait for 6 months down the road.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's all one movie to me though.
Yes,
It's
it
just
is.
one
And
6-hour movie.
have you ever been amazed at the amount of little, I'll call them Easter eggs,
Easter
the,
eggs,
the
yeah.
attention to detail to me in these films is mind blowing.
The first one had the most Easter eggs. I mean, actually, they all kind of did, because even in part 3, they had like a lot of things like the manure.
Yes.
Like it said it on the little dolly, like the
Statler
manure.
Toyota. Like it was Statler, the name was there.
Yeah. It was all, there's so much in there. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
and
It's all Bob Gale.
yes, and at the beginning of part 3, for those that don't know, I think that's Monument Valley, right? And that goes back to the young Indiana Jones in the Crusade, right, when it was River Phoenix. But there, if you look at that set that they built, and you look at those movie posters in the background, like all of that stuff is era specific to like 1955. It is just insane. Like you could probably take the person that knows the most about Back to the Future, and you could come up with something to stump that person. It's just insane.
Yeah, they had the Clint Eastwood poster.
Yes, that was another one. Yep.
And then he was even
Clint
like,
Eastwood.
what's that?
I said Clint Eastwood.
You remember he said that? And
Yeah,
then, Doc was like, who? And he's like, that's right. You don't know him yet. And he points to
exactly.
his
That
poster on the.
yeah, and that foreshadowing is just insane for and here's a fact that a lot of people don't know, right? And I didn't know this until a little bit later on, but when you watch Back to the Future 1, it was like a gag at the end of it, right? That okay, he takes off, but a lot of folks don't realize it never said in the film, and I never saw it again in 85, but it didn't say to be continued. That was added after
Yeah.
the VHS release.
It didn't. And they said they would have never put Jennifer in the car.
Right. You're right, because I
Yeah.
kind of messed it up.
Yeah. And they changed the actors and then they had to put her to sleep. And,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
have
And
you met any of the cast?
I have not. I don't think I've met, to be honest, I don't think I've met any of the cast. I've collected, I want to talk about some of the collection stuff. I've collected things over the years, like, onesie, twosie here and there. Then, 20, 30 years later, you kind of go, wow, like I've got some cool things. But I know Adam the Woo, for instance, that poster that he's had so many sign, it's such a neat thing. And I know that you guys, you have, correct? You've met some
I
of the
have.
cast.
I've met pretty much all of them.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It's pretty cool. I have a couple of their phone numbers. A couple of them know me by first name. It's kind of crazy, but yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Now, if you think of like, is there any one scene that you think of like in part 1, 2, 3? Maybe we just go part 1. Is there any one like part of that movie, like whether it's the quote Twin Pines Mall or anything in there that is like your favorite part of the film, part 1?
That's such a hard question.
Yeah,
Probably him in the very beginning playing the guitar
yeah,
and flying. I was like, this guy's a rock star. This guy's sick, especially
yeah,
as like a
yeah.
little
And he's
kid.
got
That's like an idol right there.
he's got the skateboard, and when he comes out, hell, I'm late for school, and he kind of kicks the fence perfectly, and he hooks onto the back of the Ranger out of the Burger King
Oh,
before
I
you
thought that
know
was
it.
the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah,
I was
and
like, I want to know how to do that,
yeah, and it's so neat because when he goes back to 55 and he kind of, creates the skateboard to a certain extent, right? It's like, remember when, it's his mom, of course, Lorraine, she goes, man, what a dream. Like she sees him and it's like such a cool thing what he's doing. It's just mind blowing.
Greatest movie of all time.
It really is. I just thought of this. There had been talks over the years that it was Tony Hawk that did the stunt stuff, and you and I both know it was not. There's a guy Charlie, and then there was another guy. One, I think we might go down the money trail a little bit of the Stoltz stuff, but it's so neat, like how he takes, because that was an era specific thing where those guys, the kids had the little with the deals on the front, the little skid deals.
Picks the kid up and then rips that box off, and yeah.
Yeah, and then it's kind of like this iconic scene, and it's neat because in a sense he kind of created skateboarding as far as the Hill Valley timeline.
he got everyone into skating, rock and roll, and cars.
Yeah.
Like the best three things.
And then ironically in 2015, Griff says, wow, there's something very familiar, or Biff says, the
Yeah.
old Biff says there's
Yeah.
something very familiar about all this.
Yeah, because it's another chase scene, like whatever years later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like a little Easter egg too, you know?
Yeah. Now, let me ask you this from a collectible standpoint, right? Over the years, like, have you started collecting a couple things in here and there, posters or anything, or do you not get into that?
Totally into that. I can just tell by your background that you have me beat by a long
I
shot.
only have a few things. I mean, I'm lucky that I got the last Volterra that they re-released. Um, I got a few things, and it seems like a ton. I always tell people like I don't have a lot, but it's like it's kind of like I used to have it all spread out, and when I kind of put it together, I was like, wow, I got a few little things, you know. But what's your like your favorite piece, Eric?
I don't have that much, to be honest. I mean, I've been a fan my whole life,
Sure.
but I really got like super into it in the last year.
Yeah, cool.
Currently right now I'm collecting autographs.
Yes, okay.
I have it right here.
Now, yeah, see, and that's cool because I'll be honest, I have 0 autographs. So to me, that's super awesome.
This is something.
Yeah, that is
Yeah.
amazing. And for those that don't know, Drew Struzan, there's a documentary, I think it's typically free on Amazon. Drew Struzan did the artwork for the film, and so many, I mean, arguably the greatest poster artist of all time. And that artwork is so iconic, let alone the signature.
Yeah, he did so many.
Yeah.
That's Michael J. Fox's signature.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's what I wanted you to reinforce that for the guests.
Yeah, I have a whole collection of it, so I'm just trying to get everyone. Crispin is the hard one to get.
Yeah, and not to go too far on this bunny trail, but a lot of people don't know this, that to your point, with Crispin Glover, we know he played George McFly in part 1. What people don't know is he didn't want to return, and some of it was over the script and how he thought the film should go. But for whatever reason, he didn't come back. And for those that don't know, in the movie industry, he was able to sue Universal because they used his likeness, believe it or not, without his permission. So many of us know Jeffrey Weissman comes in. He plays the Crispin character, right, in the second film. That's why he's hanging upside down and things like that. It's very odd, but this movie, if you really dive down the bunny trail and you go down the wormhole, there's so many different crazy things that happen during the productions of these films.
Yeah. Yeah, Crispin's an interesting one. I haven't met him, but, you know, Jeffrey's a cool guy. I've met Jeffrey many times.
Yeah, he seems like a super awesome guy, and my buddy would love to meet Jeffrey Weissman because my friend, who you got to meet one day, Noldy Rodriguez, he's the biggest Superman fan in the world. Like, he knows every single little thing about it. And of course, Jeffrey Weissman, for those that don't know, if I remember correctly, he was in Superman. He was one of the reporters.
I actually didn't know that.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, if it's and Noldy will get mad if I have it wrong. So I'm going off the top of my head. Now, the cool thing is too, though, Eric, if you think about these films, it brings not only joy to the younger kids, right? Like the folks that are passing down these films to their kids, right? But like even us as adults, like I've seen when you guys have all went out to where the Lion Estates shot was going to be done, right? And they're going to build the house of the future and stuff.
Yeah.
It's so neat because you guys rally around all of that, and it's a huge community.
I'm going to say that is the best part of it. Because like I told you, I wasn't really planning on making this account.
Sure.
If you asked me that morning, I had no idea. But I just kind of just accumulated this whole crew out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And they just all slowly came. And to your point, yeah, you see the little kids dressed up and they're 4 years old and they have the little vests. It's just it's so cool.
Yeah, and from a fan, I want to thank you, and I want to also thank the Bobs of the world, like even Bob Gale.
Yeah,
here's something that Bob has said on the record on interviews I've seen. Somebody asked him, hey, Universal doesn't go after these guys that are converting the DeLoreans for infringement and stuff, and he said, listen, no, and if you think about it off the record, how much money Universal has made over the years. I mean, this is the biggest blockbuster, right?
Yeah.
merchandise deals. But it's so awesome that, as far as I know, they've never went after anybody going, oh, you can't have an account that sounds like Back to the Future. They realize that the fandom in this film has helped carry it for 40 plus years.
It does. Because like you could be following like our accounts and then it just kind of gets you more into it. You're like, you know what? I'm going to go and buy this. I'm going to buy this. I'm going to go see the musical, so yep, supporting them and making them more money.
Yeah, speaking of that, you
You
just
know?
brought up the M Word, the musical. I forget if
Yeah.
you got a chance to see it. It's coming to the Tampa Bay area in May, and I told my wife, we can't be history. We have to go see it.
Yeah. You gotta. I went and saw it like 2-3 months ago.
And I heard it is mind-blowing. When it was over in England or wherever,
It's
people were
still
just,
there.
yeah, and people were saying, I mean, they had this one drone shot come in. I mean, the production value is second to none.
Totally. And I'm not a musical guy, but
Me
that was
neither.
10 out of 10,
Yeah.
you know?
Now, let me ask you this. What are you, so looking forward to the future, okay?
Yeah.
What are you hearing for the 40th anniversary, right? Because in the past, like the 25th, they've done some different things. You may or may not have heard anything on the record, but I would imagine I've seen some hints that they're going to maybe try to do something big.
Yeah. And Universal Studios announced in April, they've gave like no information saying we're going to do a Back to the Future fan night. So it's going to be kind of like a Halloween Horror Nights, but Back to the Future. And they're also doing a Star Trek one and something else.
Yep. Now,
But that's it.
I would caution some of our viewers, right? And I would say this, I know there's sometimes I've listened to radio hosts and they're like, oh, these people that go to Comic-Con and, they dress up and they do this and it's stupid and all this. I would caution people to say, look, we all probably, all of us can probably have a friend that's maybe been through a tough time, right? Everybody looks at these films differently. Some of us are casual fans, some of us are hardcore fans, but I never want to make fun of anybody that's really, really into something, right? Because I know
Yeah.
some of my friends were really into mini trucks, right? I
Yeah.
love when they do these fandom type of things because at the end of the day, sometimes, people are in rough parts of their life and a film like this in the community of fans can help bring someone out of the pits of despair.
100%. I could imagine like myself, if I'm just down about whatever it is, if I just sat down and turned on the first one, I'm definitely going to get some type of smile or something. It's just going to change my whole mood.
Yeah.
You know?
We're talking to Eric Edwards. Please follow him, Back to the Future IG. I forget, Eric, do you have a Facebook page as well that it matches to or no?
You know what? I don't.
Okay.
I don't really use Facebook that much. I have TikTok and YouTube. Those two aren't as big as the Instagram, which I mainly focus on. But yeah, maybe one day I'll start the Facebook one. Are you big on Facebook?
Well, here's the thing. To me, since you can link them, there's so many people on Facebook. I mean, I always tell people like, even if you barely go in there and read the comments, it's good just to, excuse me, to batch it because it's just another, it's free and it's hitting it. But,
Totally.
To each their own. But recently, you have been doing some super cool posts with a museum, okay?
Yeah.
Not the Hill Valley Museum. And this museum has hosted some cool stuff in the past. One of our first shirt designs featured an 80s BMX legend, Mike Dominguez. He was there at this museum before they did like an old school BMX night. And he was wearing one of our shirts and I was blown away, right? This museum is so cool. Talk to us a little bit about some of the mashup stuff that you guys have done.
So I assume you're referring to Valley Relics Museum with all the
That's it.
neon
I couldn't
lights.
remember the name, but I knew you would know it. Yes, that one.
Yeah. So I went to that museum by myself randomly like 4 years ago. I just came across it on Instagram and I was like, I have to go there. So I went in there and I thought it was amazing. And then, years later when I came out with the IG account, I think maybe like they just started following me or something like that. And I was just like, oh, they're following me. And then I was like, all right, I'm going to hit them up. And I was just like, hey, could I come by one day with the DeLorean and like pull it in there? And he was just like, absolutely. And then, so I made it happen with a time machine, a DeLorean, and 2 trucks. And we just came there one day and just pulled it in. It made no announcement about it. And I was just to get some cool footage and the owner's a fan and, and then after that, he got blown up like crazy because now people are showing up there saying, "Hey, where's the Back to the Future cars?" And he's just like, "They just showed up here," you know. And then we did a Santa Claus thing there, and that was a huge hit. We had the guitar player from Green Day come by.
Wow.
Yeah. Also, the owner of that, his name is Tommy. His sister is the girl from Van Halen's music video, Hot for Teacher.
Really?
Yeah. She's super cool, and she's always there. So maybe I'll do something with her one day. But yeah,
I gotta visit that place. Do you think that like it's to a point where like you guys could even, I mean, and if they haven't signed up for this, man, or you guys haven't, do a mashup and plan it like 3 months in advance and be like, hey, the future's going to be bright. Because to your point, like guys like even me, like I want to just go there, let alone the locals like, oh man, the Back to the Future cars are going to be there. That's freaking cool.
well, I got him so much business just because people just think it's there all the time.
Yeah,
But
good.
but yeah, I'm talking it with him. He's like, "Hey, come by anytime. We'd love to do an event." And I'm planning on doing an event there, probably with Goldie Wilson and Claudia, Jennifer Parker, and just
Claudia
kind of like
Wells.
a meet and greet with them and taking photos with them in the cars is probably our next one. We'll probably do that in a couple months. You just gotta kind of coordinate with everyone. But
Yeah,
yeah, it's a really cool place. And they
that
have
is
so
so
many cool stuff. It's crazy. They have the Bill and Ted's phone booth there,
so,
the
so
screen use one. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Are you
yeah.
still coming out here in a couple weeks, or you still?
I'm gonna follow up with you with that. I'll give you some updates on that.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and what's so awesome is I had a guy on a few years back, Kurt Crucial, and he's got 80s Life YouTube, and he really blew up
Okay.
after COVID. And he recently did a Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, all of the movie site locations. And what's crazy, his wife spent hours on Google Maps trying to figure out this baseball field, right? And sometimes I watch these guys on YouTube, the Knight Rider historians, right? And I tell people I liked Knight Rider as a kid.
Yeah,
I wasn't the biggest fan. It was only on 4 seasons, which is kind of mind blowing. I
yeah.
love when people are super passionate about something, whether it's Knight Rider, movie site locations, or in our case, and you're out there living the Marty McFly life. I mean that with all
Seriously.
respect. That is so cool, man.
Yeah, no, it really is. Yeah, Knight Rider and Back to the Future tie into each other.
Yes, because of Hill Valley, right? Some of the scene, because Universal as well.
Well, it's Michael Chaffee.
Yes, Michael Chaffee. Thank
I've
you.
met him, very cool guy. He built both cars.
Yes,
Um, Tom Wilson fifth was in Knight Rider.
I
If you knew
didn't
that,
remember that.
he was just in like 2 or 3 episodes, and I think someone else was too.
Yeah,
And they're
and I
just
think
kind of
Michael
around.
Chaffee didn't he designed the original DeLorean and he designed the original Knight Rider car.
Yes,
Yeah, okay, got it.
yeah. Kevin Pike and him made the time machine,
Yes,
and then
Kevin.
like if you remember in the time machine, you see like all the buttons.
Yes,
That's Michael Chaffee's handwriting. All the everything, all the writing.
that was something, Eric. That was something I did not know. That's very cool.
Yeah, yeah. He's great. Kevin
Yeah,
Pike is cool too.
who was that?
Kevin Pike.
Yes, I've seen him at the autograph things like at the Gamble House and stuff when they do those little nights.
Yeah, yeah. You gotta experience all that. So you've been to the Gamble House, you
No,
said?
but I've seen a bunch of videos. There was that one time when the person sells the books, and a lot of people don't know, right? Keep me honest. And when Marty goes back to 55 and he looks up Doc Brown's house or his address and he goes there, Doc is running across the yard with all of his, his
Yeah, yeah,
big
yeah.
tubes, right? And you would think but that building, my understanding was like a facade maybe right there. And then they do a cut in shot. And somebody had explained to me that there's really no garage. That wasn't where they filmed. Like that wasn't the garage, but it's movie magic.
No, that's there actually.
Is it? Okay.
It is. So yeah, some parts are a little confusing, but so you see the house, and then there's that hill, and there is a garage right there,
Yeah,
and
the
that's not a
accessory
facade.
structure. Okay.
Yeah, so that garage is a gift shop.
The gift shop. Okay, I do remember hearing that. I don't know why I had that mixed up.
But so the garage where he pulled out of Burger King was a
Yes,
facade,
that was a facade.
and
Okay,
that was a
yeah.
completely different location.
Yep,
That's
yep,
probably
got it.
maybe where you got mixed up. But yeah, that's all the same. That house is over 100 years old.
So
So
cool. Now, when
Yeah,
you
it's a
think
cool
Back to the
place.
Future and you think of the legacy of these films, right? I mean, not many films, pun intended, can transcend time, right? I mean, you look back, I look back at some of the cornball 80s movies, and I enjoy watching them because it's from my era, but,
Yeah,
Revenge of the Nerds is funny, but let's be honest, like Back to the Future, we've heard people describe it, and Bob Zemeckis, I heard him say, or Robert Zemeckis, I've heard him say, people have said it's a perfect film.
yeah.
He claimed in one interview that he goes, there's one shot that something he didn't like because it was a little bit out of focus or some weird thing that only a filmmaker would pick up on. But why do you think that this film has transcended time?
For me, it was so relatable. Like I told you, like I grew up in that same neighborhood. I had like a brother and sister like he did. I was into skating and rock and cars. It was just like it just kind of like saw like an older version of me in him, and it was just relatable.
Yeah,
But it's a perfect story.
it is. And if you think about it, it's really a friendship story because, Marty and Doc are kind of maybe closer than most people would realize. And when, Bob Gale has explained some of this too, like back in some of the comics that were released. And unfortunately, I
Yeah,
haven't been
yeah,
able to collect everything, but he even talks about, I think in the comics, how their relationship kind of came together. But it's a friendship story. And when they came out years ago, I think on 2015 Back to the Future Day on Jimmy Kimmel,
yeah, 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 yeah.
I mean, the standing ovation, it just, those two guys are just wonderful humans, man.
It's iconic. And they made the cartoon Rick and Morty after them.
Yes, I've heard that. Yep.
Yeah, I've actually never even watched it before. I don't know if you have, but
I've seen a couple episodes where my son wasn't really into that show, but there was another show too that had a lot of Easter eggs, not Upside Down something. Maybe it was Rick and Morty. There was another show around that era, and they said that the person loved Back to the Future.
oh, Family Guy.
Family Guy, maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Seth
there's
MacFarlane. That's
so
his
many
favorite
Easter
movie,
eggs.
and he's made so many references of it. He also made the movie Thousand Ways to Die in the Old West.
Yeah, and you know what? I hate to say it. Don't kill me, Eric. I haven't seen it, but I know the film because didn't they recreate Doc's like that the barn from 1885?
You know what? I didn't see that movie either, but I've just seen that clip a bunch of
Yeah,
times. And
yeah.
then they open the barn and then it's Doc. He's just like, oh, like something, weather experiment or
And
whatever. Yeah, I need to watch that movie, but just that scene is all we really care about.
we're talking with
He's stuck
Eric
with the
Edwards. Please on Instagram, Back to the Future IG. And the reason why I'm promoting it's going to bring a lot of joy. You're going to bring you're going to get a lot of smiles out of it. You did this super cool mashup with Mannequin, which is an iconic 80s movie.
Oh yeah.
And where your friends and you kind of film the scenes and then you mash it together. Like, is it you and your buddies that come up with these ideas?
Yeah, so that's Adam. If you know Adam, he's DeLorean stuff. Have you seen his videos?
I don't know if I've seen his videos.
Check out DeLorean stuff.
Okay.
He's super big. He was an inspiration to me too. Yeah, that was all his idea. He's
Okay.
like a full-on director. Like he wrote like scripts, all this stuff. And yeah, he had me film it.
That's so cool.
Yeah, he's just like, hey, I wrote this whole thing out. You're gonna film it, and we got the time machine there, and it was just that was a fun one. I forgot about that one.
Now,
Yeah,
Eric, for the record, when you and I were texting one day, your friends, several of your friends, have these what we call time machine DeLoreans, the Marty McFly 4x4. Check out that 4x4. And
yeah.
and it's a community where when you guys are getting together, you guys are cruising, you're meeting at some of these iconic movie sites. I mean, you have people probably flipping out their phones and they're like, holy crap, right? It's got to be mind blowing when you pull up at stuff like this.
Have you been in a DeLorean? Have you like driven in one?
I've sat in one. I have not driven in one.
Okay. Yeah, especially if it's a time machine, it's like you're a celebrity.
Right, because people are
Yeah.
they got their phones out.
Yeah. So, one time, very cool story is I picked up Marvin Berry in the time machine.
I saw the video on Back to the Future IG.
Yeah. So I picked him up. I was driving the car, and this was in Hollywood, and that was I'm not gonna lie, I was shaking because Hollywood Boulevard's crazy, but you're driving this car and everybody's looking. and it's just crowded, and the car is very hard to drive.
Yeah,
You
because
have all this stuff.
yeah,
You can't see behind you. You have these little tiny mirrors, no power steering, and yeah, that everyone was just yelling and photos, and then I picked up Marvin's. It was just that was insane.
yeah,
I don't even know how I pulled that off.
yeah, and in some of these guys, the amount of time and effort, I know Video Bob was he's been a leading force. He's forged inroads with Kevin Pike that, of course, as you
Yeah,
mentioned, helped build the car. And these cars, these conversions, whether you do the BTTF 1, 2, or 3, or a variant, or whether you just have a stock DeLorean. I mean, we all know the story. And if you guys haven't seen the documentary on DeLorean, for those that don't know, he kind of went down, and it was a weird story. And when he got busted for this money deal, the car ceased production. And if I remember correctly, there's just under 10,000. They think there's not 100%, but let's just say there's 9,000 built, something like that.
just 9,000 built, and 6,000 left.
Yeah, so it's already an iconic car, but we all know, thank God, it wasn't a Mustang. Not that there's anything wrong with Mustangs, but we know the DeLorean could beat the Cybertruck any day of the week, Eric.
Totally. Elon Musk, he has said that John DeLorean was an inspiration to him.
Yeah, which is pretty ironic. And listen, I'm not here to beat down any car. I will tell people though, if you could go back to 1982, I mean, were those cars cool then? I mean, maybe they did. Maybe the people thought. I remember when the new Bug came out, the VW, and it was like, wow, that looks futuristic, right?
The
I
like
wonder
early 2000s.
Yeah, I wonder if in 82 people thought, or they were just like, that's weird. But the Renault engine, I think they have, like you said, no power steering. A lot of that stuff's remedied now, right? You could put in electronic or electronic powered steering and things like that. It's interesting. Now, let me ask you this. A few more questions for you, Eric. What's your favorite non-Back to the Future film? Do you have a favorite 80s classic? 90s? Is there any, even if it's a guilty pleasure?
So Back to the Future is obviously number one. And you asked me what my second favorite movie of all time is? I'm going to go with Catch Me If You Can.
Yes.
Yeah.
Directed by one of my favorite directors, Steven Spielberg.
He is the GOAT, man.
He truly
DiCaprio,
is.
Tom Hanks. Yeah, I love that movie.
I'm such a nerd. I saw that one in the movies.
I didn't get to see that in theater, but I should have.
Now, and I haven't, believe me, if I told you some of the movies I haven't seen, you'd be like, yo, you need to take a week off and watch. I mean, I'm a movie fanatic, but I also watch the same movies a lot, right? So
I'm the same way.
But that film is so neat. And I tell you, even the score, the music that's put to that film, it's so, like, it's a cat and mouse. And it's such a cool story.
Yeah. What's your second favorite? Or what's your favorite?
Well, I'd have to say Back to the Future.
Is number
But
one.
I'm also a huge fan. When I was a kid, 80s bikes were big, and the time they were current bikes. But there's a 1986 cult classic called Rad. It stars Bill Allen. I've had him on. And then Lori Loughlin, who later obviously gets in a little bit of trouble for a scandal. And she appears on the final season of Curb Your Enthusiasm, which is a great show.
Full House.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
And she's hot, so I'm like, hey, I ain't judging.
Yeah. Michael J. Fox's stunt double was on Full House.
No, I did not know that.
Yeah. And so was Darlene Vogel.
Oh, right. I think you've taken photos with her, but Darlene Vogel was one of Griff's crew in 2015.
Correct. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. But Michael J. Fox's stunt double was, I don't know, maybe it was John Stamos or something. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, something like that. Now, for people that haven't watched, luckily I have access to Apple TV. A couple of years ago, the Michael J. Fox Still documentary came out. And man, is that whole thing gave me goosebumps. Whoever edited that, like, they have some of the transitions where he's going through the door when he was on Family Ties, and then boom, it's like current time. It's masterfully done. It's called Still.
Great. That was a great documentary. We are actually have that in the works of doing a type of reenactment.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, what's ironic, Eric, is when the scene opens and it shows like a guy laying in bed. And he talks about
like
where
he opens the blinds.
Yeah, that I
Yeah.
think the bottom corner it says that was at the Don Cesar, I think, over right. That's like an hour from me, a very very famous hotel in Clearwater, well, in St. Pete. It's a
Okay.
hotel, and I
Yeah.
was like, who would have ever thought like it would start there? You know?
It's these random places I just never understand.
Yep. Yeah.
Like the line of states, like in the fields, like where that is, it's next to a women's prison.
Well, I didn't know that.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
just like what it's just so random.
Yeah, and something, like because I don't want to skim over this. I don't want to skim through some of this too fast, but something I was talking to a buddy about the other day, right? So the Bobs, right? Bob Zemeckis and Bob Gale, that basically are the creators of this epic. They had a couple of Bobs, okay, and it was even before my era. There's a film called 1941, and then there's kind of a cult classic called Used Cars, a very
Yeah.
70-ish film. Those two films don't do well at the box office. Zemeckis, now one of my other guilty pleasures, right? Nobody laughed. I love, if you haven't watched it, Eric, you probably have, Romancing the Stone. Okay.
I actually haven't seen that movie, but I know
It's
about
a
it.
it's a great film, and it's cool because you're going to see Tab in there. If you look, you'll see a Tab soda as well. How can I take a Tab, man? You got to order something first, kid.
Yeah.
But but what's so neat is that film kind of has an Indiana Jones feel to it, the adventure. But because Zemeckis scores big with that, he was in demand. And that
Yeah.
led to Spielberg tapping them, and the rest is history, as they say.
Right. And I did watch Used Cars and I did notice a resemblance.
Yes. Yeah.
There
And
was a
it's a
couple
very,
things that I was like, wow.
yeah, very 70s-ish. It's kind of hard to watch it. They crash a couple Lincolns. I'm like, no. But they were
They had a
15
couple
years.
flyers in there and that looked just like the Claudia Wells flyer and the Goldie
Yeah.
flyer. And
Yeah.
they had like those flags, like the blue, green, and yellow. Like it was just like there's a couple things that was like, oh, it's the same.
Yeah, the car lot type pennants and stuff.
Yeah. It's
Now,
just yeah.
now growing up in California, a few more questions for you, Eric. Are you good on time?
You got all the time in the world. You
So,
got a time machine, right?
dude, I like that. All I got to do, hold on, I got to change my batteries here. I'm running out of, I got this
Oh,
for the
that's
Christmas.
cool.
Yeah. It's just a, little battery powered one, but you're right, man. All I got to do is go back 10 minutes and we can fix this. But
Yeah.
I got to ask you this, I've had a lot of guests on and living in Florida and growing up, I know we're probably not exactly the same age, but, California is the mecca for like skateboarding and BMX biking and, movies are made, down the road from where you live and things like that.
It's
Were, were,
crazy.
were there any other things that you or your friends were into like growing up, or were you into the era of the video game stuff, or, do you have any fond memories of growing up there?
We'll say the same thing for each other. It's just how it's growing up here. It's like it's all you know.
Yep.
'Cause I just don't know any difference. I grew up just kind of seeing celebrities around town and, all stuff like that. So, but I was really big into skateboarding. Video games, I like the N64, but I wasn't like a huge gamer. I was
Right. Me
more
neither.
like I'd rather just go outside and, go play in the street.
Woo
And
woo. I
you
love
know
it.
what I mean? I never even got into TV shows.
Yep. Okay.
Um, just kind of similar to you. Like I like movies, but I kind of like watching the same ones
Yep.
and more older ones. I'm not really like, oh, I got to go see this new movie coming out.
Yep. I
So
know.
yeah,
Yeah, and our attention span is shorter and shorter, right? Because I mean, you got these short clips and all this stuff.
yeah,
So like, it's hard for me to sit and watch. Like I'm notorious. I've got 30 fires going on Netflix in terms of like I'll start this and then I'll go to
yeah,
this, it's like,
yeah.
and my wife's like, why don't you just finish it? And I'm like, well, I'll finish it another day.
I get it because you just get bored of it. Yeah, you watch 20 minutes, switch it. Because it's just like, you're swiping up on your phone, just you watch it for 30 seconds on next.
Yeah.
So yeah, how many accounts do you run?
Well, I have too many, but I've tried to focus mostly on the Our Lifestyle podcast in the Lincoln Addict.
Yeah,
But because I created the Back to the Future one because there's like little things I like to share that I've learned or I've read. And sometimes there are things, and this is one I want to talk about. There's things that are just, I don't know. I love like little teeny like detail. And I'll tell you the guy, I forget his name, that runs backtothefuture.com. For a
Yeah, I've met
while,
him.
yeah, he has like for a while he was sharing some really neat stuff. Like if you think about some of the behind the scenes photos they've showed from the 2015 Hill Valley, and
Yeah,
they show the display case that he walks up to, and you see all the cool stuff, right? The antiques. Well, like for instance, I learned in that post that that jacket that's in there is Marty's jacket from 1985.
the denim one.
Yeah, the denim one, and like little things like that to me is just so neat to learn.
Totally. Yeah, I love seeing stuff like that. And then like the filming locations, like I cannot believe that was filmed here. Like that's crazy.
Yeah,
You know, especially if you've already been there 100 times and you just had no idea.
yeah. Now check this out.
Yeah.
I'm going to post the link to this, and I'll make sure you see it. But this is from November 15th, 2010. There's an
Okay.
article on movieviral.com, and I learned about this because of the guy that runs backtothefuture.com. And basically what they said were fans were continuing to celebrate the 25th anniversary back then. They go on to say that the Biff Tannen museum reel on Back to the Future 2 has not been seen in its entirety. But thanks to the people at BTTF.com, which is also backtothefuture.com, we get to see that video. Now, hear me out real quick. In Back to the Future 2, when he comes up in the alternate 1985, there's
Yeah.
there's a little reel that's playing on the little set, right? The
TV.
little TV set.
Yeah.
And there's a full cut of that reel, and it's not the final published cut because the voice is different, the voiceover.
Yeah.
But what's neat is that is like one thing that has never been placed on any of the DVD stuff. Now it exists, but here was the crazy thing. In that video, which is, let's call it 2.5 minutes, there is a boat that scene where Biff Tannen's on a boat. He's like on a yacht, call it.
Yeah.
And the name of the boat is called Monkey Business. Okay.
Okay.
That ties into when you get a chance, look up Monkey Business Gary Hart, Gary Hart. And they put the name Monkey Business because that tied into a politician who got caught cheating on his wife. And that was like an Easter egg in that, but it's a thing that a lot of people don't even know about because that it never really came out, that entire sizzle reel, whatever you want to call it. So I rambled a lot there, but that whole lobby, what do they call it?
Yeah. I've
Lobby
seen
reel.
that before.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty neat that stuff like that still exists, and it's like it's never been featured on any of the DVDs.
They need to release the Salt footage.
Yep. So I was hoping you brought that up. So a lot of people don't realize it's like 6 or 8 weeks they filmed a Back to the Future in late 84 into 85. And Eric Stoltz was Marty McFly, right? And during the dailies back then, they used to take the daily stuff. Spielberg would look at it, and the Bobs, right? As I understand it, they just said they're not getting the laughs that they thought that they felt the chemistry wasn't there.
He was just kind of too serious. And I heard that he wanted to be called Marty, even like offset. You're just like, what? Like,
Yep.
Yeah, I guess he's just kind of an oddball, but I don't know.
Yeah. There's one other thing I wanted to mention on. I got to figure out the guy's name because he hasn't been posted a lot. He must have worked for Universal when he did a lot of the Back to the Future behind the scenes. I asked him one day, I said, hey, does anybody know who took the photo of Marty and his brother and sister in front of the wishing well?
Yeah.
And he said that he figured out who took that behind the scene, that photo that appears in the film, right?
Yeah. A few of those photos have been made.
Yeah, because you're right, because there's a Stoltz version of it, right? And that's the
And then
one
there's
where
also,
his
they
brother
also
Sam
took
disappeared.
that like in front of a fireplace or like somewhere else too.
Yes, you're right. I think the one in front of the wishing well deal, it was right outside Steven Spielberg's office there at his Amblin facility at Universal.
That's what I've been told too. I've never seen it. Hopefully it's still there.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll see it on a fan night.
Yep, exactly.
You know?
And speaking of that, there's a whole story we won't go down, but I love the Jaws fandom. There was a day that Steven Spielberg's come out of his office and he was walking that area, and the Orca, the ship that was from the film, someone had ordered someone to demolish it, and Spielberg was ticked. And it's just crazy how that stuff is like priceless now.
Yeah, you can't get rid of that stuff. Luckily, they've kept a lot of Back to the Future stuff.
Yes. A couple things in closing. I do want to tell people I've had Brad Gilmore on in the past. If you've never linked up with him, please try to. He runs a podcast literally titled Back to the Future, the podcast, under Gilmore Media. He's a younger guy like you, Eric, a little bit younger than I am, of course, but he's also written a couple of short books. I mean, he's a huge fan. He actually had a quick segment on his podcast with Crispin Glover, which, as you know, is like
That's hard
unheard
to
of.
get. Yeah.
And he did answer a couple BTTF questions. He got him on through like a radio gig that he does, but he did
Okay.
answer a BTTF question, I think.
That's wild. How long have you had your podcast for?
So we've had OLP since August 2015.
Okay. So
It's,
10 years.
it seems like a good round 30 years, though, Eric.
This is my first podcast I've ever done. So
Yeah, you're doing great. Now, I want to reinforce this, okay? When Sean was recently on My Friend, and you guys will link up at some point.
yeah.
Sean wanted to reinforce this, and he forgot. If you think about in 1985, when you went back 30 years, that was 1955. That's like, wow, that's old, right?
Yeah.
And you go forward 15, perfect symmetrical, 2015. We're in 2025. 30 years ago for me was 1995. I was in high school, which is insane when you think about that.
Would it be that cool going back?
I don't think so. It would be cool, but not that cool.
It's not like going from the 80s to the 50s. It's not like that big of a night and day. I mean, there's no cell phones and social media, but it just kind of be like, this kind of looks the same. Yeah.
If
It's
I
just
had
weird to think about that.
I was going to ask you what you would do if you had a time machine, but if I had a time machine, I would go back. I would buy all the video games from like the Nintendo and stuff. I'd put them in a warehouse, unopened, 10 rating. Because if you look at the collectability, people were looking for the most rare stuff. These games selling for 50, 100, 200,000. I'm going, I got into the wrong career.
Right? You see, they were trying to sell the VHS of Back to the Future 1 for like some crazy number.
Yeah, and did you see a few years ago, Biff, which is, I'm drawing a blank.
Tom Wilson?
Yes, Tom Wilson. Tom Wilson put up his individual sealed copy years ago when he wrote like a little like letter of authenticity. But
that's different. I could see that going for a lot, but just some random one, it's just like,
I know.
I'd give you $100 for it.
And years ago, a lot of people don't know, years ago, Tom Wilson, I think he wasn't, because he has the comedy career as well.
Yeah.
I think he was kind of, for a while, he was kind of over the Back to the Future stuff, but at the same time, I don't know if Universal was super good to all of those actors, right? But for whatever they've worked out now, I tell you, some of the funny stuff when he met Adam the Woo and he takes the camera and he's got his whole shtick, he seems like genuinely, I know he'll never hear this, but he seems like one of the best guys out there, man.
He is. Back to the Future was kind of forgotten about. Like in the 90s and kind of early 2000s. I would say 2015 kind of brought it back. And then, I mean, I feel like I have kind of brought it back even more too.
Sure.
And I'm just kind of trying to do like meetups and stuff, which no one really did before.
Yeah.
I mean, there was like the mall meetup, but I'm trying to do it all the time.
Well, yeah.
Because just like, why not? It's like, how often do you get a chance to go to this location with all these cars?
Yeah.
And these car owners are all for it too. So I'm like, let's do it. When you come down here, we'll make something happen for sure.
So before I ask if you have anything else you want to share, again, Eric, Back to the Future, G, the letter IG at the end of Back to the Future. If you had a time machine, now I should have said this earlier. If I had a time machine, I'd go back and spend more time with my family. I mean, that's my first thing. I'd spend more time with my pops. If that wasn't an option, I'd buy the video games. Outside of like a family relationship, right, that you may have wanted to revisit, what fun thing can you think of if you had a time machine? What would you do?
I would just go back to 85 and live Marty's life.
Yeah, man. Check out that 4x4 over there, Eric.
I would go buy one of those because now they're, 30 grand.
Yeah.
And could have bought one 20 years ago for like 5.
On behalf of just a true pop culture fan, a huge fan, I mean, arguably my favorite film of all time, I can't thank you enough for like the community. I mean, when I say you, I mean the community, but at the same time, you're also helping spearhead some of these meetups and things like that. And to me, as a fan, that we can go to these spots and you guys can get the DeLoreans and 4x4s together, thank you, man.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no one else was doing it. So it just was like, why not?
Yeah,
That was like kind of the intention of making the account, but like I didn't really think it would go that crazy
I
and
love
get
it,
that
man.
much recognition. But, here we are, and hopefully we'll still keep growing and not let it die.
Anything else you want to share, Eric?
There's probably a million things, but, maybe we can do a round two someday.
I like it. And just for those that know that might be wondering, a lot of times they go, what do you do? I think my understanding is you kind of do real estate and stuff. So you can kind of make your own schedule. You can hustle on your own terms.
Totally. Full-time real estate agent and just Back to the Future nerd. And that's just what I do as a hobby, basically.
If you could find me a house in Hill Valley, I know it's a wonderful place to live. I'd love to move there.
Dude, you got to move down here. We'll go to all these meetups and in locations all the time.
Check out his videos and some of the stuff that he does with the mashups with his friends and the homies out there. The stuff
Yeah.
they're doing is out of this world, and I highly ask if you get a chance. I mean, there's no connection. I'm not getting anything from it. Just go follow him. It'll bring some smiles to your face. Back to the Future IG. Eric, thanks for taking the time, my friend.
Hey, thank you. We'll talk soon.